Welcome to The View, where recruitment, marketing and society comes together. Hello and welcome to The View. This episode I'm speaking with Alison Golding and Jess Lyon from West Northamptonshire Council. They're going to share some ideas around talent pooling and they're going to tell us what the frightful 4 recruitment challenges are in the public sector. My name's Neil Armstrong. This is The View from TribePad, where people, purpose and recruitment come together. Hello, I am talking today with Alison Golding and Jess Lyon from West Northamptonshire Council. Alison has been a seasoned HR professional, has worked in all sorts of different industries. Jess has worked as a recruiter, but has very recently moved in-house. And we're going to be talking today about particular challenges in the public sector recruitment and some really interesting projects that are going on in West Northamptonshire. So firstly, Alison, hello. Jess, hello. Thank you both for joining me. Do you want to introduce yourselves briefly?
Yeah, shall I go first? So I'm Alison Golding, Assistant Director for HR at West Northants.
And hi, I'm Jess Lyon. I'm the Resourcing Manager here at West Northants. Great,
thank you. Do you mind if I just sort of take you back a little bit first? Alison, your introduction to HR is perhaps slightly unorthodox. You started in archaeology, or rather you studied archaeology. How did that turn into a career in HR?
Yeah, I did. So I loved history at school. Ended up doing archaeology as a degree, and then I did do that for a few years and worked as a site assistant for a big archaeological trust. But wanted a bit of a career change. There was a lot of kind of living in different areas of the country, so I kind of on short-term contracts, and I thought probably about time to kind of settle down a bit and buy a house. So I ended up doing a bit of tempering work and ended up in a HR department and actually loved it, and so did my CIPD qualifications and kind of carried on from there really.
Okay, and I mean that sounds. I guess lots of people sort of come into HR from different angles. You've also had quite a lot of experience in different sectors. Education, NHS, local government. What was that a deliberate route? How has that journey taken place?
Yeah, I don't think it was particularly deliberate. Although I think the background in archaeology, I don't know, it always felt more public sector than private sector, even though it was a commercial company. I think probably the world of archaeology feels a bit more like that. But it was my first job where I did my training at the same time in HR. Ended up being higher education, and actually I just loved it. And I do like the ethos of working in a community and kind of helping whoever it is, whether it's a residence or whether it's a higher education. It feels a bit more preferable to me than kind of working for a shareholders and board type approach. So I think I've just been drawn to it throughout my career, and that's where I've ended up.
Okay, yeah, interesting. So Jess, again, you're relatively new to sort of in-house talent acquisition in local government. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, sure. So I've been in recruitment for about 14 years. So I did 9 years of that in agency recruitment, and then I moved in-house about 5 years ago, but only moved into public sector. So my role at West Northampton is my first public sector role, and I've been here for about 7 months. So it was just an exciting opportunity that came up, something very different. And I'm sure we'll kind of touch on that through the conversation about what drew me to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's dive in straight there. What is it that attracted you into public sector recruitment?
I think it's a lot to do with the variety. That's a big thing. I think there are not many private sector organisations, where you would get the scope of the roles that we recruit for. I like the fact that it kind of feels like you're giving back to the community. That I live in West Northants, my friends and family live in West Northants, so that's a really nice side of it as well. And there are some great benefits to working in public sector as well. So pension scheme, to mention one of them. Annual leave's great. So absolutely. I think that the variety and being able to expand on my skill set because of that variety was really attractive.
Okay, and to give us a flavour, what does that variety look like? I guess we're all aware that there is a local government, county level. What does that variety look like? What are the kind of roles you're recruiting for?
It's very broad. So it could be literally anything from like an apprentice administrator, trainee customer service, through to senior kind of director level, heads of service. We have some quite public sector specific roles, such as our planning department, but we also have roles that are kind of more broad as well that you might find anywhere. So we have some definitely more challenging roles. So I've already mentioned planning. Our legal department can be quite challenging. Social work is always quite a challenge across public sector as well. But yeah, just a lot of really good variety.
Okay, great. So Alison, for those of us who don't know what a unitary authority is, what does West Northants Council mean, and is that some sort of amalgamation of different districts? What is it?
Yeah, so being a unitary council means that we deliver across kind of a breadth of services. So we'll get a whole gamut of different services. So there's different kind of tiers in local government. You can have local kind of district and borough councils that may do things like your bin collections and council tax. But when you get to things like county councils and then more specifically unitary, you're doing a whole raft of those. So in West Northants, we are actually a relatively young council. So prior to 2021, there was 8 different councils across Northamptonshire as a whole, and through something called local government reform, we basically picked up the 8 councils and said, you know what we want is 2 large unitary councils for Northamptonshire. So that we got kind of split into West Northamptonshire Council, and then there's our neighbour North Northamptonshire Council. So between us, we now deliver that breadth of services. And as Jess says, it's I really enjoy working in unitary for the fact that one day you could be talking to somebody about I don't know, an innovation role or a Scrum Master type role, and then the next minute you'll all be looking at something like a EHC caseworker, for example, so something in SEND or early help, or you're looking in adult social care and care worker, and then all the raft of kind of business partnering, whether it's finance or communications and marketing roles. So you get there's pretty much a massive range of jobs, and that's also, I think, what it keeps it interesting for us.
Yeah. So it's a large, varied, complex organisation. I mean, how many people are working in West Northampton?
Yeah. So as a council area, we have 425,000 residents that we need to deliver services to. So if you exclude your school teachers and your school employees, we have 2,800-ish staff that work within West Northamptonshire Council. So we do that out of our main offices, which are here in Northampton, and then we've got some locality hubs in Daventry and Towcester as well. So that workforce collectively is just delivering a huge amount to our residents, and it's a sizable unitary hours as well.
Yeah. And I guess, you said, was it 2021 that unitary authority was formed? I imagine that part of the rationale for doing that was budget pressures and the need to be efficient and organise and centralise services. We're recording this a couple of months after a change in government and all sorts of expectations of what is coming in the budget very shortly. What's the environment like right now in local government, and how do you see that changing?
Yeah, I mean, it's challenging in local government, and it has been for quite a considerable number of years now. There are funding pressures, and you can pick up a newspaper, read in the press, you'll see that lots of councils have some kind of sizable budget challenges at the moment. There's something kind of a term coined by the Times recently, which talked about the frightful 4. So these are challenges that a lot of councils have at the moment, whether it's adult social care and in terms of housing or children's or home to school transport. They're really big, meaty, kind of difficult problems where we're seeing rising demand and also funding pressures as well. So it's a challenging environment. It's a really challenging environment for local government, and I think probably one of the hopes with the new government in the sector is that we start to see some navigation through some of that to unlock it. But it is difficult at the moment. But like I say, I think most people who work in local government are kind of used to this environment. We have to set a balanced budget each year. We can't not. So we're in that point now, that budget setting process where we're working through that and saying, okay, what does our service delivery need to look like for next year, and how can we deliver the maximum value for our residents, because essentially it's public money that we're spending.
Yeah. And it was the frightful 4, you said.
The frightful 4, yes.
Right, the frightful 4. And how does that frightful 4 play out, in your HR and recruitment planning process?
Yeah, and that's an interesting one, because it's in some of those hard to fill roles that Jess mentioned a minute ago. So we're seeing rising demand in, for example, housing areas, and we see demand in kind of planning, etc. as well. So with all councils who are looking at whether it's special educational needs, we're fishing in the same kind of talent pool all the time, aren't we, Jess? And that makes it a little bit more difficult.
Yes, I can imagine. So Jess, what's what are the initiatives you're working on then with those hard to fill roles? I mean, this is something that transcends all sorts of different sectors and companies and industries, where there are always certain roles, whether it's, I don't know, chefs on the high street or social workers. What are the sort of tactics and initiatives that you're developing to try to solve that challenge?
Yeah, so as Alison mentioned, so we have what we call our wicked role process, which is fairly new for us. So it just allows our resourcing team to really focus in on those hard to fill roles, record the metrics better than the self-serve roles as well, so that we can really see what's happening in the market. And it allows us to kind of focus more support, and we can be more proactive with reaching out on LinkedIn and Indeed and tools like that as well to try and secure people. But as we've already mentioned, budget can be a little bit of a challenge. Because we're ultimately driven by like our organisational goals, and we need to be very transparent with the public money that we're spending. It's not always as easy. We can't always be as kind of agile as we might like to be, with whereas the private sector, you might just be able to throw a bonus or throw a little bit of extra money to secure people.
Yeah,
we're not able to do that. So we really do need to kind of focus on our culture, what makes us a great place to work, our benefits, and the things like I've already mentioned around our pension, our annual leave. We have a lot of really nice staff networks. We've got a lovely office environment. So we really focus on those things that make it a great place to work, to try and attract people in.
Yeah, that transparency, it's authenticity, I guess is really key. People understanding what happens inside the building, and you're obviously both really enthusiastic about a career in the local government, in the public sector. How do you translate that then in your into an employer value proposition? What is it that resonates and attracts people into the sector?
Yeah, and that's a good question. It's something kind of we've lived and breathed as an organisation, because on the 31st of March 2021 we were 4 different councils. On the 1st of April 2021 we were suddenly a brand new organisation, but with no visible market presence as an employer, an unknown kind of organisational name. So we've really had to think hard about what our culture is and what it is that we want to reflect, but also then think about our employer brand and our AVP, and it's been very fortunate for us having to being able to have that opportunity to set that from the very start and design that. So in terms of where we are in the employer brand, we ran loads of workshops in very early days across all tiers of our organisation, and just asked them some basic questions about what is it that you really love about working in local government? What is the thing that makes you get up in the morning, and then helps you, that you think this is a bit that I enjoy about my job? The flip side of that is we did also ask, actually, what are the challenges? What are the things that kind of frustrate you? But out of that grew a really good sense of why people wanted to work for local government, and it was that sense of purpose, that sense of feeling like they were giving something back, that working for the local community, all of that stuff that we've kind of talked about. So for us, that's the bit that we then wanted to reflect as part of our employer brand. That word thrive kept coming up, and interestingly that was our brand new organisational values at the time, but so that things like trust and respect, but those had really resonated with people. So that view of kind of helping our residents to thrive, helping our community to thrive, actually we want to thrive in our careers, that resonated. So our kind of employer brand of where careers thrive was kind of born, and then with that visual identity of, we wanted to make sure that we always use things like real people. We wanted to photograph people at work. Our campaigns, when Jess constructs them, is focused on going out and talking to the services. Let's do some interviews with people, and let's capture why people are here, because it might not be that it's whilst our benefits are good, as Jess said, sometimes it's that competitiveness sometimes with the private sector, with the market rates, but there's lots of other reasons to work in, and it's not necessarily always about the top dollar money, and that's the bit that we've tried to capture as part of both our branding and then our EVP. And as Jess said, the culture of when you're here in an organisation, there are staff networks so that you can join. We have a really strong employee wellbeing offer as well, and that feeling of that kind of community is what we've tried to kind of generate people.
And that makes so much sense, doesn't it? In local government, it is all about community and reflecting the communities you serve, and attracting a culture that I guess represents your community. So with that in mind, what's the sort of DEI strategy? How much of that is a component of your company culture, talent strategy, and recruitment plan?
And I think it's a huge one, isn't it, Jess? Really, I mean, but again, because we're so new, at the very start of 2022, I had the opportunity to write our very first kind of 3-year people strategy, and underpinning that our 3-year kind of diversity strategy. So one of the reasons that we became the organisation that we did was some issues with kind of previous local government in Northamptonshire. So that feeling of people wanting to be listened to and employees wanting to be listened to became really important as part of our overall organisational culture, and that understanding and celebration of different perspectives and views, because that's what a diverse and inclusive workforce brings. Is everybody has a perspective, and you're not all thinking in the same way. So we've really kind of celebrated that. We've mentioned the staff networks. We've built a strong number of staff networks, and they really they come together with thoughts and ideas, recommendations. They celebrate various things like Black History Month, etc. We've done things like reverse mentoring projects, which was a fantastic opportunity to work with some health colleagues. So we had our senior leadership being mentored by other individuals around the organisation with protected characteristics, which gave them that different perspective and that dialogue and that discussion about what was working well for us, but also where some of our challenges are. So there's been a lot of work on that side of things, and in terms of looking now at talent management and succession planning, and we've got an Elevate programme that we're just about to run as well, which we're developing in partnership with our Equality, Ethnicity and Diversity staff network. So that again is a programme aimed at kind of building an inclusive talent pool and address some of those barriers for us as well. Okay,
and I mean, people are always sort of looking for new talent pools and trying to reach untapped talent that's perhaps not engaged or not even in the working population. Perhaps what are the things you've been experimenting with, and what would you like to do next?
Jess, shall I leave that to you, because that's you're involved in that, aren't you?
Yeah, sure. So recently we have taken part in a pilot programme of what we call the Care Leavers Pathfinder programme. So just a bit of a high level insight. So it's coordinated by Integrated Care Northamptonshire, and West Northampton Council have joined as a partner with some other local authorities, so North Northampton Council and the Northamptonshire Children's Trust, and a few other organisations as well. And it's aimed at care experienced young people who are looking for routes into employment, so where we can give really meaningful work experience, but it's also covered things like more soft skills, interview preparation, CV writing skills, all of those kind of things as well, and giving them some really clear guidance, but also some valuable work experience that perhaps they might not have had opportunities to do earlier on in their school lives and things like that as well. So and that has been really great. It was initially a pilot with only quite a small cohort, but that we should be running another programme in January of next year, and the aim will be to complete 2 programmes a year, and hopefully as that grows we can get more and more areas of the council involved, rather than just adult social care, which was involved with cohort 1.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. And in terms of sort of adult social care being the initial pilot, what was the thinking around that? What, do you think there's particular skills that care leavers have got in terms of, I don't know, resilience or grit, or what was it that made you choose that population?
I think absolutely there's definitely characteristics along those lines that we can see our care experienced young people demonstrating as well. I think a lot of the thinking around that was the fact that everybody that's involved with the programme does have health and social care, adult social care related places where we could support people in their placement. So we wanted them to do something that they were really interested in, that was meaningful to them. So we did specifically target people that are on health and social care related courses, so that we could put them into placements like adult social care. But there's a whole lot of reasons why it's an interesting pool, and absolutely some of the characteristics that you mentioned are really important as well.
Okay, interesting. And what sort of feedback have you had so far from the scheme? Anything that sort of jumped out as a real positive that perhaps people didn't expect?
I would say nothing kind of majorly that we didn't expect to happen. I think we were very optimistic that it would be a really positive thing, but we've absolutely had some good success. One of the people that came to us for some work experience as part of the programme has continued to do that in her own time over the weeks the programme finished, and I've actually just had a conversation with her today about making an application to go and work at one of our care homes because she's really enjoyed the experience that she was given. So it's really, really positive, and just shows, you know, how much the young people have put into this as well, because they've done this all in their own free time, completely voluntary, and still really committed to it, which has been really lovely to see.
Fantastic. Sounds like a really, really positive initiative, and congratulations on that. Be really interested to hear how the next cohorts go. So Alison, with sort of, you know, moving on from that, what are the biggest challenges you currently see in local government recruitment? I mean, clearly, you know, you've mentioned the terrible four, the fearsome four, whatever, the frightful four. What's sort of top of your agenda at the moment in terms of priorities in recruitment?
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. Those roles, those hard to fill roles that talked about, whether it's in adult social care or whether it's those actually housing specialists, for example, those housing roles. But one of the more interesting as well, I think, challenges for the whole local government sector over the next kind of decade is around skills, which is start to really maximise our use of technology. And I think that's one of the things that's really sparking our attention at the moment. So within our IT team at the moment, we're currently running an innovation hub. So we're really trying to grasp across actually many local government departments and councils about how we can really maximise our use of RPA or automation or AI technologies, and how can we weave that into what we do on a daily basis so that we can deliver a better service for residents, or a more responsive service for residents, and also obviously drive out some of those efficiencies. So there is I think there's going to be an increasing challenge for us in terms of HR and recruiters as to how do we attract that talent into what's probably seen as a less techie sector than anywhere else. Actually, we're going to need these skills and the ability to use this technology as much as anybody else. And actually, how do we do that is going to be one of our challenges.
Interesting. And I mean, what about we're seeing again in the press sort of discussion about new legislation for employers in terms of certain rights coming in sooner. That's, as you say, the backdrop of AI coming in and expectations of automation. What do you see on the sort of the longer term horizon of being big things that might change the landscape in public sector?
Yeah. Well, as you say, we've got Labour's kind of employment rights bill, so we're waiting to hear a little bit more about that at the moment. So for every HR department, we'll be looking to see what that brings for us. There's also, I think, pending changes to the apprenticeship levy, so that's something that we utilise at the moment for all big employers. So so there's a view at the moment about a growth and skills levy type approach. So that will be exciting as well, because if it's something that we can utilise more of in terms of that focus on skills and growth that we talked about with the technology, and pull on that's going to be, I think, very exciting for employers to have a look at. And
if you could have a word in Keir Starmer's ear and say, look, I just need these three things, what would you be asking for in terms of improving the prospects for HR recruitment teams in local government?
Oh, that's a difficult one, isn't it? I think I mean the LGA have been working more recently on a recruitment toolkit, because I think one of the things for me is the visibility of careers in local government. I went to a local work experience event at a school, and you kind of signed up, and people could come and talk to you about different careers, but the not understanding about what it is that you do as a council. There was a kind of view, oh, you're a council, therefore I want to find out about being about councillor or the politics side of it, as opposed to the officer roles and the delivery. So I think if we can get a better visibility and understanding of the importance that local government plays in delivering some of these services, and particularly around adult social care. It's been one of those issues for a long time in terms of rising costs. As a country, we're aging. As a county, that we're aging, and we're picking up the care for our most vulnerable in our part of the county, and probably supporting us in terms of how we do that and how we join up and integrate more with health to kind of collectively solve some of our problems and help make it better. I think that's. I don't know whether how many was that, 1, 2, or 3, but it was that would be my wish.
It's the priority. And are the things, in terms of what you've seen in other organisations in NHS and in education, that you think that that should be cross-pollinated into local government, or the flip side? Do you see things that are happening in local government that actually the private sector should be doing?
I think the transparency in local government, actually, I support. You should be able to know how the money is being spent. And sometimes it's just simple things in the world of recruitment, and how much is somebody offering for a role. I always get incredibly frustrated when somebody says, "Oh, you're interested in this role," and there's no money on it whatsoever. It could be anything to anything, and so there is a little bit about that. I know when I worked in the NHS, and I think it's very challenging in NHS because it's such a huge organisation, and kind of that big bit being centrally controlled, it always felt like you were just easing out of one initiative before another one was being put on you and another one to implement. It felt like you never got to kind of quite embed it before something else happened. So I don't know whether there is the piece that I enjoy about working at West Northampton is that opportunity to make a difference. And actually, if we're talking in our team in HR or the leadership team, and we've got an idea of actually, let's try this, let's get on and crack on and do it, 9 times out of 10 we can, because we've got that ability to be a little bit flexible and agile and try stuff, and I think that's a real plus for me, and actually something I've probably not seen in other sectors. Certainly, I think in higher education as well, it was very, at the time, it was very hierarchical in terms of how things were ran and managed.
Yeah, interesting. Jess, what about you in terms of having worked agency side and then moved in-house? Are the things that you saw in agency world that worked really well that you've tried to bring in-house?
I think there's things like the speed that agency recruiters tend to work at and things like that. As they're always really great, and the focus that you have on kind of really delivering service and kind of seeing your internal hiring manager still as a customer and giving them that really good experience and the service. Same with the candidates. I don't want candidates waiting for a month to hear anything back from us. If they're a good candidate, we don't want to be at a risk of losing them. We need to be more proactive, and that's something that my team are definitely really working hard on, to make sure that candidates feel they have a really, really positive experience with us, and that they're being snapped up and moved through the process to get on board with us as quickly as possible. But on the flip side, there's definitely things that I think actually work better. And like Alison mentioned, things like the transparency, that actually does make it easier for us as recruiters, that we kind of know, look, this is the salary. There is no kind of backwards and forwards negotiations with things. And candidates know that we're very upfront about that from the start, that this is the salary and that's what it is. And that makes it, a lot easier, but also, again, like Alison said, that variety. And I found that personally, since I've joined West Northampton, that I have got involved with things, for example, the Care Leavers programme that we've spoken about, that actually in my previous role, that wouldn't have perhaps been something that I would have been involved with. So, but it's actually been really enjoyable. It's good for my skill set as well. So there's some real positives for sure.
Fantastic. Thank you. A question for you on sort of culture and demographics. Every organisation has their own mix. Quite often we see in local government employees are older, perhaps more likely to be female because of the flexibility and the culture that's offered in local government. What are the challenges you face, and how do you attract new people into the organisation?
That is something that we are working really hard on. So we do have, as Alison mentioned earlier, we know that we have an ageing population, and we also at West Northampton have perhaps a slightly aged workforce. So it is all about how we attract that kind of younger generation into work with us. So we have some really good partnerships with some local universities, so especially the University of Northampton. We really promote with our managers and with the universities around student placements as well. We're also starting to offer some project work for dissertation students as well, so they can kind of take a really a piece of work that we would like looking at and make that a really insightful project for them as well.
Yeah.
And hopefully not only will that benefit us and them from their dissertation point of view, but it will actually give them a really good insight to what we do and be able to see that actually it's a really interesting career path for them as well. We work a lot with schools as well. So even from quite early on, we're trying to educate earlier about what it is that the councils actually do and the breadth of roles that we have. And we're currently working on developing a work experience offering as well. So at the moment we do offer work experience, but it is a little ad hoc. We're looking at creating more of a cohort program so that we can give people a real flavour of different departments and areas from within the council and let them decide, you know, what's interesting to them, what might suit them best, and hopefully kind of spark that flame quite early on to make them consider us, you know, throughout their next choices that are related to their career path as well.
Great, and that makes so much sense in terms of, you know, the points about community as well, you know, being part of the community, attracting the community and giving something back. Great, thank you. Alison, is there anything we haven't talked about in terms of, you know, your priorities for recruitment into the public sector?
Yeah, I think possibly the kind of cross-pollination of leaders between private and public sector, because I think historically it's always felt like, well, you're a public sector worker and you're in that channel, or you're private sector and you do that. And actually it doesn't need to be that way. We've with all of our roles, I think you can step in and out of those worlds, and that's absolutely fine. If you can bring that kind of energy and passion as a leader or a manager into what you're doing, it doesn't matter if you've always had a traditional background of a private sector and etc. So you bring those skills. I think that's it for me, and for us within the council, it's then being able to shape some solid management development courses so that actually we can, you know, if we've got a new manager and maybe they are new to this world, we can actually, it gives them that kind of familiarization in terms of our management development. So we talk about, you know, how we want to deliver things, some of those skills and behaviors that we ask for, and really kind of bring people along on that career journey with us.
Great, thank you, really useful. Jess, sort of closing question for you. If you could go back and advise your 18-year-old self what a career was going to look like, what would you tell her?
I think I would just say, don't be afraid to make sideways moves. It's not always a bad thing, because actually, you know, like we've talked about, sometimes you can move somewhere different and actually the scope of what you might think is a very similar role is quite different. So, you know, don't be afraid to make those sideways moves and explore new opportunities that way.
Great, thanks. Alison, what would you tell the archaeology student?
I'd probably, yeah, I think I'd say that it's okay, and I say to people all the time, it's okay to have 1, 2, 3 different careers in life. You can kind of move around, but the important thing is to just find something that you're passionate about, something that you're interested in, something that makes you get up in the morning. And if you can find a role or a sector that makes you do that, then that's fantastic. So you know, explore the opportunities, because you never know where the next one might lead you.
Fantastic. Alison Golding, Jess Lyon, thank you so much for joining me, sharing your time and your expertise, and good luck with the next phases of the Care Levers programme. Sounds really, really interesting.
Thank you.
My thanks to Alison Golding and Jess Lyon for sharing their thoughts on public sector recruitment and how they're tackling the frightful 4 challenges. Please visit tripad.com/The View, where you can subscribe and get updates for future episodes. Please share this with a friend or colleague, and we look forward to seeing you next time.